I'll never forget the look on Olivia's face when she said it. "Mr. Parker, I think it's best if you don't come to the rehearsal dinner tonight. It's just for immediate family." Her tone was polite, but her eyes, cold, sharp, cut through me like glass. I blinked, thinking maybe I'd misheard. My son, Ethan, stood right beside her, his head slightly bowed, not meeting my eyes. Immediate family. I repeated softly, "Ethan, I'm your father." He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "Dad, it's just, Olivia's family has a certain way they do things. They want to keep it small." My throat tightened. I could feel the weight of years. Every night I stayed awake when he was sick. Every morning I worked overtime so he could go to college. Every moment I tried to be both father and mother after his mom passed away. And now I was being told I wasn't family enough to attend my own son's wedding rehearsal. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "I see. Small, of course." Olivia's mother, who'd been pretending not to listen, smirked faintly. "I'm sure you understand, David. These events can be overwhelming." Overwhelming, right. What was overwhelming was the ache in my chest. I left quietly without another word. No one stopped me. No one even noticed me walk away. That night, I sat alone in my study, staring at the thick wedding folder on my desk. Every receipt was neatly filed. Flowers, venue, music, catering. I had written every check, $50,000. I'd told myself it was worth it, to see my son happy, to give him the kind of celebration his mother would have wanted. But as I sat there, the words kept echoing in my head. "You're not needed." Something inside me hardened. If I wasn't needed at the rehearsal, maybe I wasn't needed at the wedding either. I reached for my phone and called the catering company. "Hi, this is David Parker. I'd like to cancel the catering for the Bennett Parker wedding this weekend." The woman on the other end gasped. "Sir, are you sure? That's a $50,000 order." "Yes," I said quietly, "I'm sure. If they didn't need me there, they wouldn't need my money either. I used to think Ethan was my greatest accomplishment. Not the house I built with my own hands, not the business I ran for 25 years, no, it was him. My boy. When my wife, Margaret, passed away 15 years ago, it felt like someone had pulled the ground from beneath me. We'd been married 27 years. Cancer took her quietly, in her sleep, after months of fighting. I still remember how small her hand felt in mine that night. Ethan was only 17. I remember standing in the kitchen the morning after her funeral, trying to make coffee, when he walked in pale, silent, broken. He didn't cry. I did. I cried for both of us. From that day on, I promised I'd be both parents. I learned how to cook the meals she used to make, even if I burned half of them. I drove him to football practice, cheered in the stands, helped with college applications. I worked double shifts just so he wouldn't have to worry about student loans. And you know what? It was worth every sleepless night. When he graduated, he hugged me in front of everyone and whispered, "Mom would be proud, Dad." That moment carried me for years. So when Ethan told me he'd met someone special, I was genuinely happy. He deserved love. He deserved a family of his own. "She's amazing, Dad," he'd said, showing me her photo. "Her name's Olivia Bennett." She looked polished, the kind of woman who seemed born in pearls. Pretty, yes, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Still, I told myself not to judge. Love isn't about appearances, right? At our first dinner together, she called me Mr. Parker. Even after I told her twice to call me David. Her family joined us too. Her father, a real estate developer, and her mother, the kind of woman who looked like she'd never touched a grocery cart in her life. They were polite, too polite, like someone holding a glass they didn't want to spill. Later that night, as I washed the dishes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just attended a job interview, not dinner with my future in-laws. Still, I brushed it off. "Don't overthink it, David," I told myself. If Ethan's happy, that's all that matters, but even then, something in my gut whispered otherwise. When Ethan announced his engagement 6 months later, I tried to ignore that uneasy feeling. He'd taken me to lunch at a fancy restaurant, the kind I'd never go to on my own. "Dad," he said, his face glowing, "I proposed to Olivia last night." I smiled, but my chest tightened. "That's wonderful, son." He reached for his phone to show me the ring. She said yes immediately. Her parents are thrilled. They want to host the engagement party at their country club. I chuckled awkwardly. Country club sounds nice. He didn't notice my hesitation. He was too caught up in the excitement. I didn't want to dim it. At the party, I felt out of place. Everyone wore tailored suits and practiced smiles. Olivia's father gave a toast, his voice booming through the room. We're so happy to welcome Ethan into the Bennett family. The Bennett family. No one mentioned my family. No one asked about Margaret. At one point, a guest turned to me and asked, "And you are?" "I'm Ethan's father," I said proudly. Her eyes widened slightly, like she just realized the janitor had wandered into a board meeting. "Oh, of course." She turned away before I could finish my sentence. Later that evening, Olivia's mother cornered me near the buffet table. "David," she said sweetly, "I understand you're in the construction business." "Retired now," I replied. "I used to run a small renovation company." Her smile didn't falter, but her tone shifted ever so slightly. "That's lovely. Ethan mentioned you owned a modest home in the suburbs." "Still do," I said. She nodded politely, the way someone does when they've just confirmed what they suspected. "Well, we're just so happy Ethan's joining a family that values hard work." I knew what she meant. Hard work, not wealth. It stung, but I swallowed my pride. If my son loved her, that was enough, or so I thought. "Mr. Parker," Olivia began over the phone, "we've been reviewing the guest list, and we might need to make some adjustments." "Adjustments," I repeated. "Yes," she said, her voice syrupy. "Sweet. The venue can only hold 200 people, and Ethan's friends alone take up nearly half. So we were wondering, could you maybe skip inviting your side of the family?" I nearly dropped the phone. "My side of the family? You mean your future husband's relatives? Oh, no offense," she rushed to add. "It's just that they wouldn't really fit with the atmosphere we're going for. You understand, right?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. "Olivia," I said slowly, "my brother and his wife practically helped raise Ethan. My sister, she's flying in from Florida." A pause. Then, with that same artificial calm, "Well, maybe they could come to a smaller dinner afterward." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. That evening, I told Ethan. He sighed. "Dad, don't make this a big deal. Olivia just wants everything perfect." Perfect, right. Perfect for everyone except the people who loved him first. The following weeks were a blur of wedding meetings. I was included, technically copied on emails, invited to discussions, but no one listened when I spoke. Maybe a live band instead of a DJ. I'd suggest. Olivia would smile. "That's sweet, but we've already decided." It was like I was invisible. Then came the comment that burned itself into my mind. During one of the planning dinners, I excused myself to get some air. As I passed the patio, I heard Olivia's mother's voice through the open door. "He's trying so hard to belong," she said with a little laugh. "It's almost sad." Someone else chuckled. "Well, Ethan's marrying up. Let's just hope the old man doesn't embarrass us at the wedding." I froze. They didn't see me standing there, frozen in the doorway, heart pounding. 3 days before the wedding, I ironed my best shirt. The invitation said formal rehearsal dinner at the Oakwood estate, 7:00 p.m. I looked in the mirror, adjusted my tie, and smiled. Margaret would have loved to see this day. Her boy, grown up, getting married. I left early, I always do. The estate was breathtaking. Marble driveways, glowing chandeliers visible through the windows. Guests dressed like they were stepping onto a red carpet. I walked toward the front steps, invitation in hand, but before I could enter, a young man in a black suit, Olivia's brother, I think, stepped in my path. "Excuse me, sir, are you with the staff?" he asked. My eyebrows shot up. "Staff, no, I'm Ethan's father." His face changed for a second, surprise, then discomfort. "Oh, right, actually, the family asked to keep tonight's event private, immediate family only." I stared at him, trying to process the words. "Immediate family, yes, sir." He hesitated. "It's, mostly for the bridal party and parents." "I am a parent," I said quietly. He looked away, fiddling with his cufflinks. "I'm sorry. Those are the instructions." I spotted Olivia near the door, her hand looped through Ethan's arm. She saw me. I know she did because our eyes met for a moment. but she quickly looked away, whispering something to Ethan. He froze for a second, then turned his head not toward me, but toward the guests, pretending I wasn't there. My chest burned. Ethan, I called. He didn't respond. Olivia's mother approached, her heels clicking against the stone. David, she said with a tight smile, I'm so sorry for the mix-up. Tonight's just for the younger crowd. You understand, right? You'll see him plenty tomorrow. I looked at my son one last time. He avoided my gaze. My throat felt dry as dust, of course. I murmured, wouldn't want to. Get in the way. I turned and walked back to my car. The night air felt heavy, colder than it should have been. The sound of laughter echoed from the house behind me, their laughter, my son's laughter, while I sat alone in the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just sat there in my study, surrounded by the quiet hum of the old grandfather clock. Every tick echoed like a reminder you raised him alone, you gave him everything, and now he's ashamed of you. I opened the wedding folder again. The receipts mocked me. Flowers, $8,000. Venue deposit, $15,000. Catering, $50,000. I'd told Ethan not to worry about a thing. You focus on your future, son, I'd said. I'll handle the rest. And I had. I wanted to honor Margaret, to give our son the kind of wedding she would have dreamed of attending. But now, all I could see was their faces, Olivia's smug composure, her mother's patronizing smile, my son's silence. I picked up my phone and scrolled to the catering company's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button for a long time. What are you doing, David? I thought. This will cause chaos. Then again, maybe chaos was exactly what they needed to realize who they were disrespecting. I pressed call. Golden Plate Catering, how may I help you? Hi, this is David Parker. I said, keeping my voice calm. I'm calling regarding the Bennett Parker wedding this weekend. Yes, sir, everything's on track. The final payment has cleared and I'd like to cancel. A stunned pause. Cancel, sir. This is a $50,000 order. I'm aware. Is there a problem? Yes, I said quietly. They told me I wasn't needed. So neither is the catering. The woman hesitated. Sir, this will cause a major disruption. That's the idea, I said and hung up. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm, not angry, just calm. I sat back and whispered to the empty room, you crossed the wrong man, Olivia Bennett. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. And if money was the only language they spoke, I'd teach them a new one. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6:30 a.m. First it was Olivia's mother, then Olivia, then Ethan. When I finally picked up, Ethan's voice was sharp. Dad, what did you do? I canceled the catering, I said simply. You what? I wasn't needed, remember? He groaned in disbelief. Dad, that's $50,000. We have over 200 guests. Then you'll have to tell them dinner's off. Are you insane? He shouted. Do you know what this looks like? I know exactly what it looks like, I said coldly. It looks like a man finally standing up for himself. There was a long pause, then his voice cracked, angrier this time. You just ruined my wedding. No, Ethan, I said softly. You ruined something much bigger when you let them treat me like I was nothing. Before he could reply, I hung up. My hands trembled, but not from regret. From release. A few minutes later, Olivia's mother showed up at my doorstep, dressed in pearls and fury. How dare you, she hissed. Do you have any idea what embarrassment you've caused us? I stared at her evenly. You embarrassed yourselves when you disrespected me, she scoffed. You poor men and your pride. You think money gives you power? No, I said quietly, but it gives me the right to decide where it's spent. Her jaw tightened. If you think Ethan will forgive you, you're wrong. You've just driven him away for good. I watched her storm off, her heels clicking like gunshots down my driveway. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had lost my son for good. But as the sun rose and the phone kept ringing, I told myself something I hadn't said in years. Enough pretending. Enough being invisible. 2 days after the chaos, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, I was surprised to see my lawyer, Mr. Grant, an old friend in a crisp gray suit, holding a leather briefcase. David, he said calmly, stepping inside, you've caused quite the stir. I sighed, motioning toward the kitchen. Coffee, please. he said, sitting down. As I poured the coffee, he studied me carefully. I assume you canceled the catering intentionally. Yes. And you're aware the Bennett family has been calling my office non-stop since yesterday. Good, I said flatly. Maybe they'll learn what respect looks like. He chuckled under his breath. I told them I'd handle it, but there's something else we need to discuss. He opened his briefcase and slid out a thick envelope one I recognized. My handwriting, my signature, my will. I asked. He nodded. You asked me to revise it 3 years ago. Do you remember what we discussed? I thought for a moment, then frowned. Yes. I said Ethan would inherit everything if he continued to treat family with dignity. Why, Mr. Grant leaned forward. Because the Bennett family has been making inquiries. They assumed Ethan already had access to your estate, including your rental properties and investment accounts. But they're mistaken. I raised an eyebrow. Go on, he smiled faintly. You own far more than they realized, David. Your late wife's shares in the company, the ones you never transferred, have grown in value. Your estate is worth over $3 million now. I blinked. $3 million? He nodded. And it's all tied to a moral clause. If Ethan ever disrespects or alienates you, the inheritance reverts to charity, specifically the Margaret Parker Foundation. I sat back, stunned. So technically, he said, if what happened at that rehearsal counts as alienation, which it certainly does, Ethan may have already voided his claim. I exhaled slowly, and Olivia's family has no idea. Not yet, he said. But they will. They've been pushing Ethan to request early access. They think you're just a retired handyman sitting on a house. I laughed bitterly. Let them think that. That same evening, I was sitting on the porch when a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Out stepped Olivia's father, Richard Bennett, looking more furious than a man with that much money should ever look. He didn't bother knocking. We need to talk, he snapped, marching up the steps. I folded my arms. You're on my property, Richard. Watch your tone. He ignored me. I know what you're doing. You're trying to manipulate Ethan, threatening him with money. I raised an eyebrow. Threatening. I raised that boy. You just met him 2 years ago. He stepped closer, face red. You think you're clever, hiding assets, locking him out of his inheritance. You forget I have friends in finance. I know what your estate is worth. Then you also know it's mine to do with as I please, I said evenly. He smirked. If you don't want trouble, you'll transfer part of it to Ethan before the wedding. It'll make you look generous, keep things quiet. I couldn't help but laugh. You want my money to save your reputation. He glared. Olivia deserves security. Ethan's future depends on this marriage. If you truly cared about your son, you'd stop this nonsense. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. If you cared about your daughter, you'd teach her respect. You don't buy family with money. His jaw tightened. You're going to regret this, maybe, I said, opening the door for him, but not tonight. He stormed off, muttering under his breath. As the SUV roared away, I leaned against the doorframe and smiled sadly. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. They were finally showing who they really were. Later that night, Ethan showed up unannounced. His eyes were tired, face drawn. Dad, he began, can we talk? I nodded silently. He looked defeated. I know Olivia's family went too far, but you didn't have to cancel the catering. You embarrassed me. I took a deep breath. No, son. I reminded you who you are. He rubbed his face. Her dad says you're trying to control me with money. I'm trying to protect you from people who only see you as a way to climb higher. I said, and right now, you're letting them pull you down. He looked away. I don't know what to think anymore. Then start by reading this, I said, handing him a sealed envelope. He frowned. What's this? Something your mother wrote for you before she passed. I promised her I'd give it to you before your wedding. The next morning, Ethan called. His voice was trembling. Dad, he said quietly, can I come over? When he arrived, he looked pale, shaken. He sat down across from me, clutching the letter like it was something sacred. I read it, he whispered. I nodded. What did she say? He took a deep breath, eyes glistening. She wrote, if you ever find yourself with someone who makes you ashamed of where you came from, walk away, because the person who truly loves you will never make you hide your family. He paused, swallowing hard. She said you gave up everything for us. and that my greatest responsibility was to never forget who held me when she couldn't. I felt a lump in my throat. Your mother was a wise woman. Ethan rubbed his temples. I thought Olivia just wanted things perfect. I didn't realize she was trying to erase you. He leaned forward, tears in his eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. For the first time in a long time, I saw my boy again, not the groom trying to impress people, not the man being molded by others, but my son. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Son, love doesn't demand sacrifice of self-respect. It never has. He nodded slowly. I think. I need to talk to her. Do it. I said gently, but be ready. Her family won't take this well. He gave a faint, sad smile. Neither will she. That evening, Ethan went to the Bennetts' mansion. I didn't hear from him for hours. When he finally called, his voice was heavy. You were right, he said quietly. They don't care about me. They only care about what I can bring. What did Olivia say? She said marrying me was still the smart choice. She actually said that. I closed my eyes. Then you know what you have to do. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said softly, the wedding's off. The morning after Ethan called off the wedding, my phone didn't stop ringing. Olivia's family must have gone into damage control. Reporters, suppliers, and friends, everyone wanted a statement. The Bennetts' reputation was built on appearances. To them, this wasn't just a broken engagement, it was a public disaster. Around noon, I looked out the window and saw Ethan's car pulling into the driveway. He stepped out slowly, holding a small box, the engagement ring. When he came inside, he didn't say a word for a few seconds. Then he set the box down on the table and exhaled. It's over. I nodded. I figured. She didn't even cry. He said quietly. She just looked, insulted. Her father told me I'd regret this, that I'd thrown away my one chance at a real life. I gave a sad smile. A real life doesn't come from people who treat you like a project. He sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. I was such a fool, Dad. I sat beside him. No, you were in love. That's not foolish. But love without respect isn't love at all, it's dependence. He didn't reply. The silence between us said everything. Later that day, the Bennetts posted an official announcement online. Due to unforeseen family circumstances, the wedding of Olivia Bennett and Ethan Parker has been postponed indefinitely. Postponed indefinitely, a polite way to say canceled. The comments flooded in, whispers, rumors, judgment. People speculated about everything from infidelity to money troubles, but the truth was simpler and uglier. That evening, I got a call from Mr. Grant again. David, you should know the Bennetts tried to pressure Ethan into signing a financial settlement. I frowned. Settlement for what? They wanted him to sign a joint business agreement, one that would have given them access to your company shares if you passed. I laughed bitterly. Even after all this, they're still digging for money. Mr. Grant chuckled. Well, they just buried themselves instead. The headline hit like a bomb. Business tycoon's daughter's wedding canceled, financial motives exposed. The article quoted sources close to the family, claiming the Bennetts had pushed for the wedding to secure investments from the Parker estate. I didn't leak it. Neither did Ethan. Mr. Grant told me someone from the catering company had overheard Olivia's father bragging about their soon-to-be family fortune. Karma, it seemed, had excellent timing. By noon, the Bennetts' company stock had dipped. Rumors spread that investors were pulling out. Olivia's father gave a statement denying everything, but the damage was done. Meanwhile, Ethan avoided social media altogether. I can't look. He said, it's everywhere. You don't need to. I told him, you just need to learn from it. That afternoon, we took a drive, just the two of us, to the old lake where we used to go fishing when he was little. The air smelled of pine, and for the first time in months, we spoke without tension. I forgot what peace feels like. He admitted, peace comes when you stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand you. I said. He nodded, staring at the water. I thought marrying her would make me someone, like I'd finally made it. You already were someone. I said softly, you just forgot. He smiled faintly. You sound like Mom. That hit me right in the chest. She'd be proud of you today. When we drove back home, there was an envelope waiting in my mailbox from the Bennett family's lawyer. Inside was a single line. You'll regret humiliating us. I folded it calmly and dropped it in the trash. That night, as I poured myself a drink, Ethan looked over. "What now, Dad? Now?" I said, swirling the glass slowly. "Now we move on." A week later, Mr. Grant invited me and Ethan to his office. "I have something to show you," he said with a grin. On his desk lay a freshly printed document, my updated will. Ethan's eyebrows rose. "Updated? Yes," Mr. Grant said. "Your father made some changes last year. He wanted to wait until after your wedding to tell you." I looked at my son. "But since that wedding isn't happening anymore, now seems like a good time." Ethan looked uneasy. "What changes?" Mr. Grant cleared his throat. "In this version, Ethan isn't receiving direct ownership of his father's assets. Instead, all holdings will be transferred to the Margaret Parker Foundation, a charitable trust focused on supporting single parents and widowed families." Ethan blinked. "So, I get nothing." I smiled. "You get responsibility. You'll be the foundation's director if you choose to accept it. That's worth more than any inheritance." He leaned back, processing it. "So I don't own it. I manage it." "Exactly." I said. "Your mom always wanted to help families like ours. This is how we honor her and make sure the money never becomes a weapon again." He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I think she'd like that, Mr. Grant smiled. "It's a wise choice, David, the kind that protects both legacy and lesson." As we left the office, Ethan turned to me. "Dad, I know I don't deserve this, but I'll make it right." I put an arm around his shoulder. "You already started, son." We drove home in silence, the kind that felt warm this time, not awkward, not heavy, just full. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man losing family. I felt like one rebuilding it. 2 months later, the house felt alive again. Laughter echoed from the kitchen as Ethan chopped vegetables, clumsily but with determination. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic butter filled the air. "Careful with that knife," I said, grinning. He laughed. "Relax, Dad. I watched enough cooking videos to qualify as a sous chef." It was strange after months of silence, distance, and pain. We were suddenly a family again. No rehearsals, no fancy venues, no in-laws pretending to smile. Just us. Ethan set the table, and for a moment, I imagined his mother sitting there again, her soft voice teasing me about the overcooked roast, her hand brushing his hair. He caught me staring at the empty chair. "You still miss her. Every day," I said quietly, "but I think she's smiling right now." He nodded me too. Halfway through dinner, Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked down and frowned. "It's Olivia." The name sent a chill down my spine. He hesitated, then answered. "Hey." I pretended to focus on my plate, but I could hear her voice faintly trembling, unsure. She said she's sorry. He whispered after hanging up. "For everything, her dad's company's in trouble. Investors pulled out. They're selling assets." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I don't wish them harm, but I do hope they've learned something." He looked at me. "You really don't hate them?" I smiled faintly. "Hatred only keeps you tied to people who hurt you. Letting go, that's real revenge." We clinked glasses of water like champagne and shared a quiet moment of peace. After dinner, I handed Ethan an old brown envelope. It was worn at the corners, sealed with wax. "What's this?" he asked. "Your mother wrote it years ago." I said, "She gave it to me before she passed, told me to give it to you when the time was right." His hands trembled slightly as he broke the seal. The first line made his voice crack. "My dear Ethan, if you're reading this, it means you're about to make a big decision in life." He read slowly, eyes glistening. "You've always had your father's stubborn heart. You'll chase love, dreams, and approval, but don't lose yourself for them. If someone truly loves you, they'll never make you feel small. And if money ever comes between you and your heart, choose your heart." He stopped reading, tears falling silently. "Remember, family isn't who you're born to, it's who stands with you when everyone else walks away." Ethan folded the letter carefully, pressing it to his chest. She knew. She always did. I whispered. She saw the world clearly even when we didn't. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock and the faint hum of the night outside. Then he looked up and said something that made my chest tighten. "Dad, I want to keep her name alive, not just through the foundation, but through people, Real stories, real help. I nodded, my throat thick. Then that's what we'll do. 6 months later, the Margaret Parker Foundation opened its doors in the same small town where I'd grown up. A crowd gathered for the inauguration. Families, volunteers, friends, even a few faces from our past. Ethan stood at the podium, speaking with quiet confidence. My mother believed that kindness should outlive us. My father showed me that dignity matters more than pride. Today, we honor both. Applause filled the room. I felt a lump form in my throat. As I looked around, I saw hope, not greed, not gossip, not status. Just people helping people. After the ceremony, Ethan came over and handed me a plaque. It read, "To David Parker, who taught us that respect is the truest inheritance." I couldn't speak for a moment. "You didn't have to do this." He smiled. "Yes, I did." Outside, the evening sun painted everything gold. The pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, it all felt distant now, like a bad dream that had finally faded. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" Ethan asked. I chuckled, with a canceled catering order. He laughed. "Yeah." I put an arm around his shoulder. "Sometimes life has to fall apart before it can rebuild itself. We just have to be brave enough to let go." We stood there in silence for a moment, watching the sunset melt into the horizon. And as the light dimmed, I thought about every lesson this storm had taught me. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.